far across the sea. In the midst of an island empire, an ancient monster awakens. Hi, and welcome to round 4 of the Missed Apex Formula Renault 3.5 Challenge as we journey to Japan, where the drivers will duke it out at the iconic circuit of Suzuka. From the tire-trashing terror of 130R to the savage suspension-snapping S's, there will be no mercy for those seeking glory and redemption on the unforgiving asphalt. To get us underway today, please give a warm welcome to your commentators, Chris Stevens and Chris Catman Turner.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to Suzuka for round 4 of the Missed Apex iRacing Formula Renault 3.5 Championship. So far this season, we have seen 3 different winners from the first 3 feature races. Will that trend continue as we head into this evening's action? My name is Chris Stevens. We are into the final 20 minutes of free practice before we go into qualifying. So without further ado, let's head trackside for the remaining few minutes of practice. A few of the top contenders still in pit lane at the moment, but this is Stephen Williams, who is currently second fastest in this session, but some half a second away from the benchmark pace, which is currently being set by Danny Henny on a 1:42.336. And it's safe to say that he has been the form man all week long throughout testing and the practice races that we have done so far this week. Williams in second place, as I mentioned, with Tim Ellis in third. Just another couple of tenths back from Stephen Williams, who heads into the first couple of corners now. And I think it's safe to say that this car around this track proving to be a very popular combination with the massive amounts of downforce that this car produces, certainly compared to the Formula 3 car that we used to race for the last 3 seasons around this track. But that being said, still a few danger points, this being one of them at the Dunlop curve, particularly in the first few corners when you're on cold, or the first few laps, sorry, on cold tyres. We've seen a couple of cars do 360s around there with drivers getting a bit eager on the DRS button, which of course is a feature in these cars, not limited to particular zones like you see in Formula 1. They can use it anywhere around the lap during free practice and qualifying as much as they would want, but then they are limited to a certain number of seconds during the race. But again, you can still use it wherever they want. As a look at Luke Power, scored his first podium of the season last time out at Watkins Glen, and he could well still find himself in a competitive position in the championship as he just pulls over there and abandons that lap. But this is the reigning champion, the man currently second in the championship standings, 8 points back from our championship leader Gregoire Gomez, who currently sits on 308 points. And Power has been the man to beat in qualifying so far this season. 2 poles to his name, the other one going the way of Stephen Williams. And it's surprising to say we haven't mentioned Danny Henny in that list at all, given that he was basically the qualifying king in the Formula 3 days, sharing that honour with Luca Harrison, who sadly doesn't appear to be with us this weekend, but Power on his way here. Been struggling for pace a little bit, as you can see, 8th fastest at the moment in this session, but we've seen this so often from Kyle Power, where he seems to just leave something in the pocket right up until the end of qualifying and then bangs in a banzai lap, and a couple of times this season even onto pole position as well, which was never really his forte in the Formula 3 days. Always tended to come alive in the race. But actually, Kyle Power, for his 2 pole positions, yet to win a race this season, either in the features or in the sprints. So far, the feature race winners, I said at the top of the show, we've had 3 from 3. It's been Danny Henny, Alex Dobertsberger and Gregoire Gomez who have taken those honours so far this season. Gomez taking a pretty sensational victory last time out at Watkins Glen, using the strategic element. Of course, in that feature race, we do have a mandatory pit stop as well. And even though Henny had passed him for the lead, he was able to get back using a later pit stop. And that element is certainly going to be very important here, given that overtaking is likely to be a little bit of a struggle around what is a very high-speed layout. This is Spanners ready, exiting the hairpin. 16th fastest for Spanners at the moment as he makes his way towards the spoon curve, sporting that lovely Missed Apex livery. And this would be a good time to plug what's coming up on Missed Apex. So, of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, our Motorsport channel, then please do so. But also subscribe to our main channel, Missed Apex F1. On Sunday, we will be attempting to fix Formula 1 again. And, of course, next weekend we've got the Qatar Grand Prix. That coming back to the calendar after a year's hiatus. First year of a 10-year deal for Formula 1 to be racing around Losail again. And that race review, of course, will be next weekend, coming up to a very thick and fast part of the championship with quite a few races happening over the next few weeks as we hit the Middle East and then North America. Need some later race times and some later shows, but of course we will always have that race review ready for your Monday morning commute. So be sure to go over and subscribe to that channel. Just under 15 minutes left in this session. Wonderful shot there as Spanners makes his way through the S's section. A little bit of blinking there, unfortunately. Spanners got to get his internet connection sorted out. We are rather at the mercy of the individual's internet speeds. We do tell them to run a wide connection. It's for the best. Yeah, Spanners are about to come out on a bit of traffic there. This is Mark Greenhow, currently second of the gold standings. If you're new to the championship, we have 3 different driver classes. We have platinum, gold, and silver, and you can differentiate them not only from the colours on their number, white being the platinum, the sort of yellowy goldy being the gold, and the grey silver being the silver. But also the gold drivers will run 2-digit numbers. The silver drivers will run 3-digit numbers, with only a couple of exceptions in the platinum class, being Colin Ward and Richard Spanners Ready cars 10 and 11, because well, we've got more than 9 of them. As Green had a big swapper there coming into the Dunlop curve, and now this is what we were talking about earlier, where a lot of drivers have been struggling in the early stages of a stint. As we ride on board with him now underneath the bridge, where of course the circuit goes over itself towards 130R, towards the hairpin. Big traction zone here where we've seen a number of drivers struggling all week long, but Greenhow looked to get a very smooth exit there. And of course it's an important run as well as you wind your way through this right-hander into what is a potential overtaking opportunity into Spoon if you're close enough, but more drivers preferring to get the run out of Spoon towards 130R to make an overtake. And of course 130R proving to be quite an interesting corner, as drivers can get on the DRS button here of course, but you can't manually close it. It will only close if you lift off the throttle or hit the brake pedal. And so what we're seeing is drivers actually, and I'm sure that was an attempt at taking it flat out with DRS open there, and probably another one right behind him as well that didn't work out well for either of them in fact. So here's a replay of what happened to Greenhow. Almost certainly would have had the DRS open there. And that looked like the McLaren liveried car as well that had gone through as well. But what we're seeing is drivers use the DRS on the run up to 130R, just have a teeny tiny little lift to shut the DRS and then carry on their way. It seems to be that the DRS is worth the lift there, as in they are gaining more than what they are losing. And here we'll see an example of it on board, looking at the rear wing of Danny Henney. And now, interestingly, he's left it shut. You can just see that tiny little slot gap there at the bottom of the rear wing. When the DRS is open, that little gap will counterintuitively close, but it stalls the rear wing, and that is the drag reduction system on these cars. A little bit different to what is used in Formula 1, which is a bit more visually obvious with the rear wing opening. Here it's a slot gap that shuts, and it looks like Henny is backing out of a lap here, just getting a time across the board, going for a practice start on the front straight by the looks of it as well. So just over 11 minutes now left in this session. Now, if you weren't with us at Watkins Glen, boy, howdy, did you miss a doozy of a battle and some big drama in the championship as we see Danny Henney is still recovering from what has been a very difficult start to this season. But our very own Steve Amy is able to get you up to speed.
Round 3 of the missed Apex Formula Renault 3.5 Championship kicked off at Watkins Glen International Circuit. There was midfield carnage from the outset, which left Gregoire Gomez, Kyle Power, his nephew Luke and Stephen Williams in the leading battle pack.
Gomez goes down the inside and takes Kyle Power.
But it didn't take long for the track to claim its first frontrunner.
Oh, I've cursed him. I've cursed Luke Power, who has spun off, and he's been bitten. It is a track where if you get on that power too early.
Up the front, both Danny Henney and Kyle Power were hunting Gregoire Gomez.
What does Kyle do now? What he can't do is get mega defensive and let Gomez go, because that is going to hurt both of them. And the championship is tight.
Henney then pulled the trigger, surprising both Power and Gomez to claim the lead.
I'm just having a little look at Danny Henney, and I think he's used the DRS to get past Kyle Power in the first instant, and then a double overtake with Gregoire Gomez as well.
The leaders left their pit stops till the very last moment, and when they were done, Gomez had regained the lead.
Here's Gomez then out of the pit, and it looks like Gomez has kept the lead by a long way.
Gomez was hounded all the way to the line, but hung on to score another feature race win.
We have Greg Gomez comfortably then bringing it home in front of Danny Henney and championship leader Kyle Power.
Race 2 saw Aussie Adrian Clark lead off from pole, but the first run up the back straight turned into Carmageddon for many.
Oh, it's a tag! I would be very surprised if that wasn't a penalty, and there is carnage in the midfield there.
Miguel Morland, John Langham and James Gill stayed ahead of the melee, but before long John Langham claimed the lead, only to have to relinquish it to the fast-charging Luke Power and Alex Dobbitsberger.
It does look like Langham is a sitting duck here as Luke Power goes round the outside. That had to be DRS, but Dobbitsberger also has that slipstream too. Power defends on the inside, Dobbitsberger along the outside, and Power actually conceded that.
The championship leader came powering through the field into third place, but no one could catch Dobbitsberger.
An absolutely amazing result for Alexander Dobbitsberger in P1.
The final race of the round was led off by Nick Alexander, James Gill and Alex Strilsma. But once again, the crash fairies were out in full force.
There's carnage down at the back.
When the dust settled, James Gill was out in front, with Alex Strilsma hot on his heels.
Because James Gill has some pace, but does he have the consistency to stay ahead of Strilsma?
The simple answer to that was no.
Alex Strilsma up ahead of James Gill.
Behind Gill, Gregoire Gomez was charging fast and looking dangerous.
Oh, they're side by side. Look at that. Gomez making it look easy.
Gill did, ultimately, succumb to the Gomes onslaught.
Gomez is past Gill for P2. The gap is 1.8 to Alex Strilsma, so that might be a bit too far, even for Gomez to catch now.
A little further back, Tim Ellis and Danny Henney were mounting a last-minute attack.
So, as we go up to that all-important back straight, it does look like Tim Ellis has a run. And straight away, though, has to get out of the slipstream, and there's contact with Danny Henney. Contact with Danny Henney, and that has favoured Henney.
But in the end, Alex Strilsma held on and took the win.
As the checkered flag falls, that is Alex Strilsma who takes it, who takes the win in race 3.
Well, here's a look at the championship standings then. It is Gregoire Gomez that leads the way from the defending Formula 3 champion Kyle Power by 8 points. Then in third place, we have Alexander Dobbitsberger, 22 points back, but more wins than anyone else so far this season. He has 3 to his name, 1 feature race and 2 sprint races as well. Tim Ellis, they're 55 points back, but the real surprise is Danny Henney, the 3-time champion of this series in Formula Renault and Formula 3, 61 points back, and it's got all the shades of last season where he had such a tumultuous start to his campaign and was able to claw himself back into title contention, but just missed out on the title last year, and it looks like he's going to have to do the same again this year. In the gold standings, it's Jose O'Donnell who leads by 24 points to Lucas Raskovitz, and a further 6 back to Alex Smith. And Jose O'Donnell taking a sprint win earlier in the season. That certainly helped his gold championship campaign. Then in the silver class standings, it's Ian
Round
Gill
3 of the Mist
who leads
Apex
the way
Formula
by
Renault 3.5.
18 points to Ryan Sedgwick. But it's an awful lot closer behind them with Daniel Snorterland, the rookie in this championship, sitting in third place ahead of two of our stalwarts of Mist Apex iRacing, Ivan Anderson and Nick Alexander, who are level on points in fourth and fifth. So three good battles to look out for across all three classes tonight. And of course, in the overall standings, it's Gomez and Power who lead the way, but interestingly, O'Donnell and Raskovets sitting well inside the top 10 in 7th and 8th overall, ahead of the Platinum drivers, Alex Smith and Sam Harper. And of course, that is one of the beauties of this championship. There is opportunities for promotion and indeed relegation as well, depending on where you finish in the championship. We've had a few drivers being brought up through the ranks as they've come on board. Of course, Gregoire Gomez, formerly a gold class champion, and has now spent a season and a half racing in the Platinum standings as well. And Luke Power, a silver champion, actually skipping the gold class altogether because he was so impressive in his debut season last year, and going straight up to Platinum and actually proving to be a force to be reckoned with for his uncle Kyle. And we know the Power family watching, always watching these streams, seeing how their boys are getting on. So, just a little over 4 minutes left in this session. Now, we were talking about the lap in this car and how much fun it has been for these drivers, but also what a challenge it has been as well. But don't take my word for it, because Spanners drew up a handy-dandy little guide for us to see what happens around this lap.
Hi guys, Spanners here. Quick caveat, I am the least qualified person to show you a hot lap of the Suzuka circuit. I am about 2 seconds off the pace on qualifying pace, a little bit closer on race pace, but I can give you a glimpse at the challenge ahead for our drivers. This is the toughest circuit we've had in this Renault 3.5. So eyes down as we cross the line. Heading down the start-finish straight, you'll see that I am nervously picking my line because I have no idea what to do into turn one. You are turning at full speed and then braking with steering lock on, and use a bit of curb here on the inside. No, that's too much as we head into the world-famous S's. Nearly flat out now, and then up the hill, just control your line with the braking and flat out again. And now this right-hander is all about the prep into Dunlop. All the way over to the right. You want to be flat out here, but the rear protests, so you need a little lift as we head down to Degner 1, a corner that tries to steal your soul. If you even look at the gravel, you're in the wall. And Degner 2 just invites you to go over that curb. You won't get floor damage, but it might unsettle the rear. As we head into the hairpin, brake down, oh yes, touch the grass, and lock the inside wheel, Spanners, yes, that's going to help. But get as inside as you can, and then it's all about making sure you open the steering on the way out, because you are going to lose a lot of cars snapping to the left. Okay, this curve here is straight, and you do have the DRS as you brake into the Hamilton-Russell curve. No, this is Spoon Corner, so you've not finished with the turn one exit before you then have to go back down into that second apex. It's all about being gentle on the brake and patient with the throttle. As we head up towards 130R, unlike the F3, very hard to go side by side through here. If you forget to deactivate the DRS, you will bin it. 100% you will bin it. Brake down from the 100-meter marker board, tickle that right-hand side, and open up the corner so you can get a great drive down the Suzuka straight. And that is a very, very average lap around Suzuka. There are guys out there who are on the absolute limit, and that's what you have to do to be fast here. My plan is to survive.
Well, we've got just over a minute left on the clock in free practice before we head into the 10-minute open qualifying session. Again, if you're new to the championship, we don't run qualifying like they do in the officials, where you get 2 flying laps all on your lonesome. All the cars will go out together for 10 minutes, usually get around 5 or 6 laps in that time. That, of course, means that these guys have got to play ball and look for space to work in. But also maybe even catch a cheeky little toe as well, particularly down one of these long back straights. And that will set the grid for our feature race. And then we will go into 2 top 20 reverse grid races, which will be set from the previous race result. And it really does make for some very interesting racing as well. So the feature race winner will be starting the second race of the night from 20th place. Before, we'd seen drivers coming right up through the order to challenge for podiums and even wins occasionally back in the Formula 3 days. But with these higher downforce Formula Renault 3.5 cars, that has proven to be much more of a challenge. So we're really seeing a new mix of drivers competing at the front of the field now. We only have to look at how many different drivers we've seen on the podium so far. No unsurprising or unfamiliar names to the championship. Of course, as the checkered flag is now out for the end of free practice and qualifying is underway. I believe Lucas Raskovitz was the first one to make it out of the pit lane. Indeed, he was in that bright yellow car. And second in the gold driver standings at the moment and 8th overall. Former silver class champion back in the days of the F3 Cup. And he's closely followed by Danny Henny, who'll be the one to watch, certainly. He's been the foreman all week long and top of that practice session as well by nearly half a second. Interestingly, the times weren't really coming down towards the end of that session, so it seems like the track state isn't really improving all that much. But Henny on his way here in that very familiar red and black Venom Works livery. Alexander Dobsberger, by the looks of it, for close company just behind him as well. And third in the championship. Taking more wins than anyone else so far this season. 3 to his name. And this is interesting. Raskovitz pulling aside here and letting Henny go. And Dobsberger as well. So he wants to get a bit of a slipstream by the looks of it. Henny not bothering with any of that. Doesn't seem to need it. What kind of pace can he deliver in this qualifying session? Everyone taking it very easy on this outlap, as we've seen a number of drivers getting caught out on cold tyres. Carl Power's not too far behind in that pack as well. But, yeah, Henny probably not using the DRS through there. He's told me he doesn't think it's worth it for the very marginal gain. This is the amount of risk you end up taking. But they exit the chicane and start their first flying laps now. We're on board with Danny Henny, the 3-time champion of Missed Apex iRacing, as he goes on his first flying lap in this qualifying session at Suzuka, approaching 270 kilometers an hour as he turns into the first corner. Keeping it very neat and tidy as he heads into the S's section now, getting very aggressive on the curb on the left-hand side. Very neat and tidy at the wheel there. Nice smooth lines indeed, like he's pushing that steering wheel through treacle. And this is the careful moment there as he go up to the crest of the hill. Got the DRS button open there, I'm sure. Into Degner. Seen a lot of drivers struggle here. Indeed, while we were watching that VT of the hot lap, we saw Stephen Williams put it in the barriers there on the exit of Degner 2. Not exactly the confidence boost he would have been hoping for going into this qualifying session. Again, keeping it very neat and tidy as they come out of the hairpin. Sector times looking very good indeed. In fact, Henny is one of only 2 drivers to be lapping in the 36s in the first sector. The other one is Gregoire Gomez, but even he cannot match the pace that this man is setting at the moment. Second sector times about to come in. And again, Henny stretching his advantage there in that middle sector. Nothing in the low 28s. Tim Ellis not too far away from that as well. Now, don't get too greedy on the curbs here into the chicane. And Henny will keep it to the right-hand side as he drives up towards the timing line. And the first lap of the session is immediately a fast one. It's a 1:43.018. And that is already 1.2 seconds ahead of Alexander Dobbelsberger. Gregoire Gomez was on a decent lap. He could only just get within half a second, though, as could Luke Power. He's gone up to second place with Kyle Power a few tenths back in fourth as well. So it's advantage Henny in the first round of these laps. As we follow the reigning champion Kyle Power going through the S's section here. Now I'm just wondering if he's been holding something back, like we've seen him do at a fair few number of races now, where he just seems to wait until the 11th hour to pull a few tenths out of the bag and stick it on the front two rows of the grid. He was the fourth fastest at the end of that first run. And that's in there as we ride on board with him, looking through the nose of Kyle Power. Fantastically fast section of the circuit. They're approaching 270k when they head towards turn one, and it's almost 260 there as he turns into Spoon. Very difficult section of track, and now is that Gomez just in front of him who's gone for a spin? I think it was, and yes, it was the Frenchman. So Gomez was third fastest with that, and we've been talking about how much the cars have been struggling on the exit of Spoon. They're telling me the car is loose at this corner every single lap, and he was just a tad wide there at the apex, a little too aggressive on the power. Now he just kept out on the barriers, so he will be able to continue, provided he hasn't done too much damage to the tyres. But he's going to have to back out a little bit here because he's caught right up behind James Gill. Meanwhile, Danny Henny has lowered his benchmark to a 1:42.897, now half a second clear of Luke Power in second place. And didn't look like Kyle Power improved. He did improved in time, but not in position. And Luke Power didn't improve on that last lap. It was 1.5 seconds slower, so clearly some sort of a mistake there, I believe, in the final sector, because he said a 39.1, and that's about a second off. And Danny Henny's gone off. Danny Henny at Degner 2. I was looking at the other screen, so I didn't quite see what happened. Oh, wide in Degner 1 there, and then just could not get it slowed down at all. I would not be at all surprised if he made the barriers there. And it's going to have to bring it back to the pits, potentially. And, well, he's still going. He's still going, but I'm amazed if he hasn't, if he A, managed to keep out the barriers, and B, if he hasn't got damage on that car. So, interesting ploy here from Danny Henny. He's still got the provisional pole time at the moment by half a second. But we often see times can come in right at the very end of the session. Kyle Power letting Henny through there, so using this lap to cool down the tyres. Very dramatic start to this qualifying session. We've only got 3 minutes left on the clock already. Here's Alexander Dobbelsberger, currently fifth fastest and some 3/4 of a second away from provisional pole. Is this lap going to be any better for him as we ride on board with him as he goes over the timing line? And indeed it was not. He was a tenth away from his best time, and he's only 0.04 of a second away from Kyle Power, the car in front of him in the timings at the moment. And just been demoted to sixth place, actually, because Tim Ellis has gone over the line. Stephen Williams, with his first competitive lap, is suddenly within a tenth of a second of the pole man, Danny Henny. He's gone up to second. So, wow, Stephen Williams got some serious pace here. Can he take advantage of the fact that Henny's had a bit of a scruffy one and nab his second pole position of the season? And Henny yet to claim a pole in this season so far. As we continue to follow the progress of Dobbelsberger at the end of the first sector, heading towards the hairpin now. And I don't think this is a particularly fast lap for him. Lapping in the 37s, or low 37s in the first sector. Here's Stephen Williams, who's just put it second fastest. I'm keeping an eye on Henny as well to see what his times are like. I mean, the first sector is an absolute disaster for Henny, a 39 flat. So I really am surprised that he hasn't brought it back to the pits and done a quick repair there, because I can only assume he's got some sort of damage, or maybe he had traffic on that lap. Not quite sure, but Williams a little wide there at Spoon Curve, but he got away with it. Actually doesn't seem to be pushing on this lap, does Stephen Williams. So using this lap to have a breather. 1 minute 20 left on the clock, so when he gets over the timing line, this will be his last lap. And Henny building up to a lap as well, so it's all going to come down to this final run in qualifying. Currently less than a tenth of a second separates the top two. Here's Henny building up towards his lap as well. Alex Smith has just gone sixth fastest as well in the gold class. Very good lap for him, but we'll keep focused on the overall battle as we're on board with Henny for this final lap in qualifying. Less than a minute left on the clock, and our leaders are on their way now. Gomez is just in front of him on track, a couple of cars ahead, so we'll be sure to keep an eye on him as well, because he's only a tenth and a half away from pole position in third place as well. So it's Henny versus Williams versus Gomez on this final lap for pole position for the feature race in round 4 of the Missed Apex iRacing Formula Renault 3.5 Championship at Suzuka. Henny going for his first pole of the season, as is Gregoire Gomez. And now that was a spin in front of Henny. Wasn't phased by it at all. And it was not the Gomez car by the looks of it. There was a car in between them. Now this is where he had the crash on the previous flying lap. All good on that occasion. Heading towards the hairpin. Keeping it neat and tidy. Keeping an eye on the sector times of his rivals as well. They're very evenly matched in the first sector. It's actually Stephen Williams who's the fastest of the three so far on this lap. Here he is coming out of Spoon Corner now. We'll get the second split time as he goes over the timing line in just a second. You see it was 36.7 on the first sector. Now we haven't got the second sector time there. I wonder if he made a mistake. It didn't seem fantastic. Maybe he exceeded track limits. You can do that at Spoon, so we'll see what it's like when he gets over the timing line. And if this lap does indeed stand and he doesn't improve, it's a 43 flat, so that's not an improvement for him. Gomez has come over the line. He can't improve either, so it will be Danny Henny on pole position for the first time this season by just 94 thousandths of a second to Stephen Williams. Interestingly, no one really improving there at the end of that session. Who have we got still to come across the line? Alex Smith here. It looks like he's going to secure the gold class pole position in 6th place overall, ahead of Jose O'Donnell. They're third in the gold driver standings. I think I erroneously referred to him as a platinum driver earlier when we were looking at the points standings, but he, of course, isn't gold. So Sam Harper behind him in the standings. That is the platinum driver, as we're heading to the grid now for the feature race in round 4 of the championship. Lining up on the grid then for the feature race in round 4 of the Missed Apex iRacing Formula Renault 3.5 Championship from Suzuka. It is Danny Henny for the first time this season on pole position, with Stephen Williams starting alongside him. Gregoire Gomez and Luke Power line up on row 2. Then Tim Ellis and Alex Smith with the gold class pole position in 6th. Then Kyle Power, the man second in the championship, lining up in 7th. Jose O'Donnell in 8th. Then Alexander Dobbelsberger and Lucas Raskowitz on row 5. Then comes Mark Greenhow and Daniel Cook. Daniel Snorterland and James Gill. That is the top 3 in the silver class there as well. Alex Dromsma starting way down in 15th. Very difficult qualifying for him. Colin Ward and Tara Tylus, they're 16th and 17th, ahead of Andrew Sexton. Richard Spanner's ready, and Matt Cook line up on row 10. Then comes Frick Smith and Richard Molden. Nick Alexander and Charlie Pouillet, with Sean Bennett and Alexandros Murafkani. Ryan Sedgwick, Matt Trumpets, Miguel Morland, John Langan and Daniel Cullum complete a 31-car field for round 4 of the championship. Danny Henny for the first time this season starting from pole position. Stephen Williams starting alongside him not in the top 10 in the championship after he's had to miss a round or two there. Championship leader Gregoire Gomez lines up from third. Luke Power looking to make a bit more of a mark in the championship here. From fourth place, second in the championship, Kyle Power in seventh, third in the championship, Alexander Dobbelsberger in ninth position. So far this season, we have had 3 different winners from the first 3 feature races of the season. What will happen in round 4 as the lights are on now? And we go green at Suzuka. Big puff of smoke as the drivers try to get away as quickly as possible. And Stephen Williams looks like he might just have the jump. But Danny Henny squeezing him over to the pit lane exit to try and hang on to the lead. Gomez and Power are side by side for third place in the meanwhile. And looks like Power's just been able to edge ahead. But Gomez will have the high ground as they go into the S's for the first time. And the championship leader just able to hang on to a podium position there as we've got Kyle Power trying to make up places as well in 6th place there. He's just looking at the back of Tim Ellis. Very neat and tidy stuff as they head through the Dunlop curve for the first time. It's Henny who leads from Stephen Williams, then Gomez, Power, Ellis, Kyle Power, Alex Smith. Jose O'Donnell has got yet second place in class at 8th overall. Alexander Dobbelsberger's lost a place in 9th, and then Lucas Raskowitz completes the top 10 as they come out of the hairpin. Got to be very, very careful here. Cold tyres and a very big traction zone to try and navigate as there's some squabbling in the mid-pack. Still very close for third place in the meanwhile, with Gomez having to repel the advances of Luke Power so far. And Stephen Williams is going with Danny Henny here. He's only 4 tenths away as they come onto this back straight. Now, the DRS usage here going to be very important. Can't afford to use it all up in the opening stages of the race, and Henny is recognizing the attack immediately from Stephen Williams, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to mount a challenge into the chicane. Side by side for third place now as Luke Power tries to get around the outside of Gomez at the chicane. Still, they are absolutely neck and neck on the exit of the corner. Gomez just able to hold the advantage, and here comes Tim Ellis trying to get involved in the action as well, right in the slipstream of Gomez. It looks like he could get ahead of Luke Power here. How they're going to play this by the time they get into the first corner. Ellis has to back out of it, and somehow they've all emerged in the same position that they were in. Oh, but Ellis getting a very good drive. Gomez had a big swapper, and he's dropping right down the order. The championship leader with a big mistake out of turn 2 there, seemingly getting it all wrong and losing a bucket load of positions. He's dropped down to 6th place behind Luke Power, Tim Ellis, and Kyle Power as well. So it's Luke Power now up in 3rd place. Now, how's Gomez going to react to this? He's got to gather himself up, not lose too many positions here, because he's got Alex Smith breathing down his neck as well. As the top 2 starting to pull away now. All that squabbling for 3rd place has left them 1.7 seconds clear of Luke Power there in 3rd. And Williams is really hanging on to the back of Danny Henny. He's only half a second away as they exit the hairpin. Luke Power going to try and consolidate this 3rd place, I feel like, here, and try and get away from Tim Ellis. He had a bit of a close call at that chicane as he was going side by side with Gomez and nearly losing that place to Ellis. And, well, maybe there could be some power play here between uncle and nephew, and see if Kyle Power can get involved in this fight as well. He's right in the slipstream here of Tim Ellis. 2 fantastic races in our series. Tim Ellis, a race winner at every level we've run in Formula Renault's Formula 3. As well. I'm sure it won't be long before he takes a victory in this championship as well, as he went to the outside there of Luke Power. That just shows how powerful the slipstream is. He wasn't actually all that close to him coming out of Spoon Curve, but by the time they got to the braking zone at the chicane, they were right next to each other. And unsurprisingly, fastest lap of the race being set by Danny Henny, but he was only a 10th quicker than Stephen Williams. It's still less than half a second that separates that top 2, but we'll keep an eye on this battle for 3rd. At the moment, he's got Power here. He's just drawn a bit of an overlap, but nothing he can do going into the S's on Tim Ellis there. It's a great battle for the final spot on the podium at the moment, currently being led by Luke Power. Luke the younger, as Kyle Power, the reigning champion, trying to find a way past Tim Ellis here. These 2 have had some titanic scraps over the years, and Gregoire Gomez is not too far behind in that as well. He's only 6 tenths back from this battle, so all is not lost for the championship leader just yet. We've got a big train of cars now forming to fight for this last spot on the podium. rounding the hairpin once again. Lead gap stretching out a little bit on this lap. It's now up to 8/10 of a second as we continue to watch Power hunt for that fourth place spot. This is that battle for the lead. Stephen Williams just losing out a little bit on this lap. The gap up to 8/10 of a second now. Let's see if he can close it back in as they head down the back straight. Power here looking very racy as well for fourth place. Hoovering up that slipstream. Now Ellis doesn't look quite as close to Luke Power this time, so he's going to have to get on the defensive, I'm sure of it. Look at the power of the toe there. And Ellis defensive to the inside. Big outbraking maneuver here coming from Kyle Power right round the outside of the chicane. Very nicely done. And Kyle Power moves himself up into fourth place ahead of Tim Ellis, but he's got to be very wary of that blue and yellow car behind him, because Ellis is going to come straight back at him, as is the championship leader, who decides that discretion is the better part of valor, as does Tim Ellis, and decides that he's not going to make it around the outside. That opens up the door for Gomez to try and get through here as well into fifth place. They're going to go side by side into the S's. He's got to be very, very careful here, because that's exactly how Danny Henny's championship came unstuck this time last season. But Gomez has made it work. His recovery drive already starting it up into fifth place. So Ellis losing a couple of places in about half a lap there, and he's actually got the gold class leader Alex Smith bearing down on him as well. Smith only a couple of tenths of a second ahead of Jose O'Donnell, the gold class points leader. As well, we're on board with Alex Smith now, looking at the back of Tim Ellis's car, and that's another mistake there for Gomez. He's locked up going into the hairpin. Gomez showing some fantastic speed, but not an awful lot of consistency at the moment. And look how much that's dropped him back from the powers already. He's 1.3 seconds back. And instead of focusing on getting after a spot on the podium, he's looking in his mirrors, looking at Tim Ellis, trying to cover him off, because he's not going to get any tow here down the straight. But Ellis and Smith and O'Donnell and Dobbensberger are going to get mega towed coming down here. So a bit of a scruffy race for Gregoire Gomez so far. Look at that. I thought that Smithy was going to go for it there for a second, but it's actually Ellis who is the aggressor coming into the chicane. No way through though, and Ellis not exactly getting the optimal line, wasn't quite able to undercut and cross the line into the chicane, so his exit might not be as good as he wanted it to be, but still in a position here to tow and maybe on the DRS. Not quite, doesn't look like it. Heading into turn one. Riding on board with the number 4 car as they head through the S's, still looking at the back of that BWT liveried championship leading Gregoire Gomez car, the Frenchman, who has been certainly a very dramatic driver to watch since he's joined the championship a couple of seasons ago. Certainly never bored watching him, that's for sure. But it looks like Gomez just able to consolidate that place now, and he can use these next few corners to try and pull away from Ellis, provided he keeps it neat and tidy, because he couldn't do on the previous lap. No such lockups this time. There's that lead battle, which for the first time is now over 1 second. So Stephen Williams might just have to concede on the pace. Last time around, they were still only separated by a tenth of a second, but Stephen Williams has been very good at playing the strategy game ever since the mid-race mandatory pit stop was introduced. He certainly used it to good effect in his championship battle last season. I wonder if he's going to be able to do the same here today. If he can stick close enough to the back of Henny, he might just be able to take advantage if he can get a good strategy going here. The two powers starting to separate out a little bit as well. I think last time around, Kyle was looking like he was going to start attacking his junior for the last spot on the podium, but not looking like he's in a position to do so at the moment. Now the fastest lap of the race set by Danny Henny, a 43.3, this time taking nearly 7 tenths out of Stephen Williams. The gap up to 1.5 now. So Williams starting to drop back a little bit. One man who isn't dropping back is Tim Ellis, who refuses to give up the ghost here on 5th place against Gregoire Gomez. Keeps pulling back in to the Frenchman. And this could be a battle that rages all race long. He's got the gold class lead battle happening right behind them as well, only separated by 0.6 of a second. The silver class, in the meanwhile, that lead battle only separated by a second as well. It's Daniel Snorterland in 12th place overall that leads James Gill. So another good battle happening there, and in fact not too far behind them as well is this man, Mr. Richard Spanners Ready, currently sitting in 15th place. That would line him up 6th on the grid for the next race, but of course long way to go. We're only on lap 6 of 16. So of course the feature race being the longer, we've got 2 11-lap sprint races coming after this as well, with the top 20 reversed. And Spanners here looking at the back of Taro Tylus in the gold class driver. Spanners of course being moved up to platinum after winning the gold championship in season 5. That was a couple of seasons ago now. This will be his second season in platinum as we rejoin the two powers who are working very nicely in tandem here. Luke still sitting in that 3rd place spot. A little bit of blinking there. Oh, Luke, get a wired connection. We have told him. We have told him to get one. Should learn from his elder, who is currently stalking the back of that car. Kyle running the green edition of the Venom Works livery. You could almost consider him and Danny teammates, but of course they've been fierce rivals over the last 2 seasons. Having fought for the championship every year together. Gomez still hanging on to this 5th place here. It seems like every time he tries to catch a break and pull away in the corners, that slipstream just brings Tim Ellis right back into play. And actually, Gomez has gone about that gap to power in front of him because it's come down to about 1.1 seconds now. So even though he's had to keep one eye on Tim Ellis behind him, he has been able to close that gap ever so slightly. Soon approaching half race distance, and I wonder when the leaders are going to start thinking about pitting. We saw at Watkins Glen they were leaving it very late indeed. Gomez didn't come in until the antepenultimate lap, so we could see some late action for sure, and that could shake things up indeed in the order. Of course, Gomez was able to use that strategy to jump Danny Henney for track position for the lead of the race. That's how he won. This is Alex Jonesma, who has taken 2 sprint wins so far this season, but currently 8th in this race so far. And actually, he's split up that gold class battle. He's got himself ahead of Jose O'Donnell, so into 8th place. And Dobbelsberger's not too far behind him either. Dobbelsberger, of course, in this championship fight in 3rd place in the standings. Dobbelsberger still running that familiar black and red Ace of Spades livery that he's run since he joined the championship so many seasons ago now. He's a man who's been with us since the Formula Renault days, or even before that, even back in the MX5 days, in fact. That was an awful long time ago. Closes up on the back here. Took a big chunk out of Jose O'Donnell going into Degner 2, draws alongside here going into the hairpin, and Dobbelsberger, I imagine, will have a very nice run indeed on the run up to Spoon Corner. This is the battle for 9th place that we're watching. Dobbelsberger, who's won 3 races so far this season, more than anyone else, draws completely alongside. That's going to be a bit of a challenge to get all the way around the outside of Spoon, but they are absolutely neck and neck going through the double apex left-hander, and O'Donnell just able to hang on to the place. Some fantastic wheel-to-wheel racecraft there from the pair of them, but I'm afraid O'Donnell is still left a little bit exposed going down the back straight, and Dobbelsberger on the inside now of 130R. Still, O'Donnell is not giving up this place. I have a feeling Dobbelsberger might have had to just back out of it, and try as he might up the inside into the chicane. Still no way through for him. This is a fantastic defensive effort from Jose O'Donnell in this battle for 9th place at the moment. Dobbelsberger now looking towards the inside, I'm sure, on the DRS button there, down the main straight, and that was much, much simpler for Dobbelsberger. Up the inside, nicely done, up into 9th place now. But in that time, he's lost 1.5, or more than that, sorry, 2.8 seconds to Alex Dronsma while he was looking at the back of O'Donnell's car, trying to get around him. And while it was great to watch, it hasn't done his race too many favours as well, because he's dropped big time behind Alex Dronsma. We'll see what he can do with that in the second half of this race. We're on lap 9 of 16. Danny Henny leads now by 1.8 seconds. I do wonder how might this race have played out if he hadn't been able to keep Williams at bay. It was such an aggressive dart to the right-hand side, practically put Williams in the pit lane as they got off the line. It did seem like Williams had made the better start there, but alas, he sits in second place, doing very well to keep on the back of it. Last time round was a tenth quicker than Henny, but that gap not shifting all that much. He's not under any threat for now. As we look at the gold class leader, of course, Jose O'Donnell losing out to Dobsberger. That's done Smithy an awful lot of favours there, as his advantage in that class increases. Smithy, who's been the benefactor of some training from Danny Henny, and he just seems to have gone to grips with this car so quickly. We saw him fight for occasional podiums in the Formula 3 car, but he has taken to this car like a duck to water, fighting for podium position, overall podium positions, in fact, not just in class. Right from the get-go when we got this season going at Nürburgring a few months ago. Lap 10 of 16, no sign of anybody coming into the pits just yet. They will have to serve a mandatory pit stop. They are under-fueled for this race, only by a lap or so, but enough that it's going to force them to come in, do a quick splash and dash, and get back out on track. And of course, that is a strategic element that you can get yourself into clean air, maybe come in early and just run some clean laps. We've seen some drivers been able to make that work. Traditionally, that's what Stephen Williams has done as well. It doesn't look like he's doing it on this in this particular race, though. All drivers have come in very late. It depends where you find yourself on track, really, because we've seen cars getting caught up in big squabbles and then lose out to cars that have come in early. But that can easily happen the other way around. If you come in too early, you come out in a lot of traffic and you lose time fighting your way through the field while your rivals are putting in clean lap times. So it all depends on how well you're working with the cars around you. Right now, these guys are really playing ball. It's amazing that Carl Power just can't quite get on the back of Luke here. Luke has shown some sensational pace, and Carl assures me that Luke is indeed faster than him, and that he is much more competent than he. But of course, Luke still a very young driver. Just did his GCSEs last year, or was it this summer? At some point in the not too distant past. I think Alex Dronsma, in the meanwhile, has gone past Alex Smith. Two Alexes of battling there. Seventh position. And, Smithy realising that that's not quite his fight. There is Dronsma. It looked like the tail was wagging there on the exit of Degner 2, but he's getting on the back of Tim Ellisdale, who's certainly not had a quiet race. Of course, was right in the thick of the action, fighting for that last spot on the podium in the early stages of the race. I do wonder how this is going to play out when we start getting the pit stop phase underway. We have had a few drivers start to come in already. Lucas Raskovitz, Mark Greenhow and Richard Spanis-Ready have been into the pits. Some slightly longer stops for the likes of John Langan, Sean Bennett and Matt Trumpet, so I can only imagine that there has been some dramas further down the order. And, there's a look at who has come in so far. Of course, as you can see, no action yet from our top 15. Raskovitz in 16th place is the highest driver at the moment, yet to make it into the pits. But as I say that, Alex Dronsma makes his way into the pit lane. So he was in 7th position when he came in. Let's see how he gets on when he emerges from pit lane there. Now this is going to be a good barometer for the other cars, depending on what sort of traffic he comes out in. I am keeping an eye on him, and now he's going to have a couple of back markers there in front of him, but it's relatively clean air, and he's come out a good 6 seconds or so ahead of Raskovitz. He wasn't all that close to him really to begin with. Raskovitz wasn't inside the top 10 for the pit stop window, if memory serves me correctly. So Johnsma from 7th place, well on his way. Wasn't the fastest stop in the world, 4.5 second stationary time compared to 1.2 for Raskovitz. So, yeah, slightly less than ideal there. But as we rejoin the leaders, I wonder if that's going to set off some sort of chain reaction, and we might start to see these guys coming into the pits in reaction to one another. We're on lap 12 of 16, so opportunities for pit stops are going to start running short pretty quickly. Henny, in the meantime, has been setting a blistering pace, but Williams on that previous lap lost an awful lot of time. He's in a 44.6, very scruffy lap for the man in 2nd place. The gap now 3.7 seconds as Henny comes across the timing line to start lap 13. Still no movement yet into the pit lane from our front runners, except for Gregoire Gomez from 5th place. Now that might be a little bit more telling to see how the pit stops are going to play out as the Frenchman pulls into his box, all the way down the end of the pit lane there. And, just keep an eye on him to see what kind of traffic he comes out into. Of course, there were those 2 cars that Drosma came in behind. Crucially here, Gomez is going to get out ahead of those 2 cars, and in fact, only just ahead of Drosma. So even with Drosma having to clear those cars, he's got right on the back of Gomez here. Now remember, Drosma was in 7th, Gomez was in 5th. So Johnson's made up quite a bit of ground here. And if the leaders could see this, I would say they'd be in on this lap, because Johnson's made up fantastic ground, making good advantage of that. Obviously, the pit stop does give the tyres a chance to cool down there, and you can benefit very briefly from a bit of performance boost. But this is going to be fascinating to see how this one plays out, particularly between the 2 powers, as they're only separated by a second, lapping in perfect unison at the moment. They both set their personal best last time around, a 43.8. Lapping in very, very consistent pace at the moment. Henny continues on his way on lap 14, and the 2 powers have come in though. Williams has stayed out from 2nd, but the 2 powers are in from 3rd and 4th. Now remember, Gomez was the car behind them by about a second. And if Gomez is able to do what Drillsman did on the previous lap, as we see, Tim Ellis has also come in. Jose O'Donnell has also come into pit lane as well. Gomez here might well be able to take advantage of that early stop and jump these guys. Dronsma and Gomez are just coming down the start-finish straight now. They're not close enough to challenge the powers. They might just be close enough to challenge Ellis, though. And they have cleared him. And in fact, for 7th place, Gomez is in the barriers. Gomez in 9th place into the barriers. Was contact with Alex Dronsma going side by side into the 2nd corner. That is not an ideal feature race for the championship leader. So you see, Drosman was looking down the inside here. Contact made out the 2nd corner. A very scruffy race indeed for the championship leader. Not only with that mistake that dropped him off the podium battle early on, but then a lock up into hairpin, and now this as well, just as he was starting to make ground up again with that good stop. Let's take stock of what's been happening at the front. Still Luke and Kyle Power separated by not much at all. Henny into the pits now at the end of lap 14. And Stephen Williams same as well. He does So interestingly, these two on the same tactics here. This is the gold class leader, Alex Smith, also coming into the box. Of course, only one more lap after this as well, so if they don't come in on this lap, they'd have to do it next time around. Here are the two powers. Now, they are much closer together now than they were before the pit stop phase. Now, they're about to, I think, retake their positions. No, in fact, they're not, because Taro Tylus has stayed out. Danny Henny back out into the lead of the race. And Stephen Williams still 4.7 seconds behind him in second place. Taro Tylus has stayed out, so he's going to have to come in on this lap. But Luke and Kyle just sitting in behind them, so that will be third and fourth when Tylus comes in to do his pit stop. Dronsma in sixth, and yeah, he is ahead of Ellis. Confirmation there on the timing screen, because I'm pretty sure Ellis was ahead before the pit stop phase. Alex Smith provisionally with the gold class lead. We'll see where Tylus comes out. He wasn't too close to Smithy before they came in. Oh, now as Gomez had another drama because he's tumbling down my timing screen. He has, in fact, he's gone off at the Dunlop curve. It's about to fall down to 14th place. Here it is. Just a bit of a swapper on there. Very unusual to see. It's going from bad to worse for the championship leader, who has been incredibly fast, but struggled to keep it on the straight and narrow so far in this race. Now, what this does mean, of course, is you'll have a better starting position for the first of the two reverse grid sprint races. Right now, from 14th, he'd be starting in 8th. In 7th, sorry. Although it might well be 8th, because actually Spanish is right on the back of him, but we'll keep an eye on the battle of the powers here. As Tylus finally comes into the pits, makes his stop. We're on to the final lap of the race now. Henny leads by 5 seconds. This battle for third place, 2.7 behind them. But he's not settled for the last spot on the podium here. It's Kyle looking at the back of Luke. Might yet be one last twist in this tail here. Take round the S's for the final time, and he's certainly within the slipstreaming window here. And if I know Kyle, then he'll have saved up a good bit of DRS for this final lap, if he hasn't used it for the pit stop window. Kyle is definitely the sort of driver who would plans ahead like that. Some drivers get a bit greedy and use it all up in the first few corners for that early gain, but Power is patient. He knows that he can deploy it later in the race and gain while others lose out. Alex Johnson there in 5th place, still ahead of Tim Ellis. Definitely seems to be that the battle for the last spot on the podium, one of the closest on track, is Danny Henny. We've barely seen him all race long, but he has been there, being absolutely superfluous. And this is a race that is very akin to what he would do in the Formula 3 days, where he would just be absolutely untouchable in the feature race. Generally, things would come unstuck in the 2 sprint races. We've still got those to come, but for now, it has been just a perfect drive from Danny Henny, the 3-time champion of Missed Apex iRacing. Comes out of the final corner now and takes the feature race victory in round 4 of the Missed Apex iRacing Formula Renault 3.5 Championship from Suzuka. It's his 2nd feature race win of the season. Stephen Williams takes a fantastic 2nd place, and Luke Power fending off his uncle for the last spot on the podium. Johnsma getting over the line in 5th place, with Ellis in 6th. Smithy taking the gold class win there in 7th. Dobsberger in 8th. And let's see if we can get Danny Henny into the commentary box here and talk about that victory, because it was pretty sensational. Danny, we brought you into the commentary box. That was just dominance, mate.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was a bit difficult off the line. I got a bit too much wheel spin, so I had to do the shoey chop on Williams to cover him off. And yeah, it was good. Just tried to bring the tyres in first 2 laps, and then I was desperate to get Williams out of the tow. And then I had to burn a little bit of DRS early on just to open the gap up. And then once we got to 2 seconds, it was just about managing it from there. But I think he might have had an incident or something. I looked down at one point, I think it was 1.9, then it went up to 2.8, and then it weren't too bad from there. But yeah, really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed it.
You've got to do it from 20th now. We've already seen that in these cars, it's harder to get back up the order. This track in particular, where do you think you're going to finish?
If it's anything like the previous, in the pits. So anything on track. I mean, I'd take a top 10 now. I just want a nice, clean 2 races inside the top 10. I'd be ecstatic with that. But yeah, if I can just have clean races, I'll be well happy. I need Kyle and Greg to have a pretty bad night to pull a lot of points out of them. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, so far you've done it all right. Dominant second feature race win of the season from pole position. Well done.
Cheers, Chris.
Well, let's take a look at the results then from the feature race in round 4 of the Missed Apex iRacing F3 Formula Renault 3.5 Championship from Suzuka. Danny Henney, a second feature race victory of the season for him. Stephen Williams, a first podium of the season, second podium of the season, sorry, in second, ahead of Luke Power. Again, a second podium for him. Carl Power in 4th place. With that, we'll take the championship lead, I believe, with Gregoire Gomez finishing right down the order in 14th. Smithy takes the gold class win there in 7th place overall, 2 places ahead of Lucas Raskowitz and Jose O'Donnell and Mark Greenhow there. And Daniel Snorterland dominant in the silver class there in 13th overall, beating Gomez, Spanners and Colin Ward to the top 16. And on reverse grid pole, it will be James Gill, the silver class 4th place driver, ahead of Alexandros Muravkani. Now, James Gill has been a very good defender, so him starting from pole position should be very interesting indeed. Frick Smith there just missing out on that coveted reverse grid pole, ahead of Richard Molden. Matt Trumpets making it into the top 25 as well. We had a couple of incidents further back for Miguel Morland and Daniel Cullum, who didn't seem to make it to the end of the race. But that is all from the feature race. Coming up next, we have the first of our 2 top 20 reverse grid races. So we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.